Hi friends, I'm Mazafta from Easy Approach, and in this video we are going to discuss GetX package. At first we'll discuss what GetX really is and what are the benefits we can have using GetX. And after understanding it, we'll do some coding to implement GetX so that we can better understand it. GetX is a mini framework within the Flutter framework, which actually combines goodness of different packages to make development easy and productive. It not just combines different packages, however, it combines improved version of those packages. People often think that GetX is just a state manager. However, it's more than just a state manager. In fact, as I said earlier, it's a mini framework within the Flutter framework. Now let's see what GetX really provides us. So the first thing that GetX provides us is RouteManager, which is all about managing routes in the app. It means managing navigation between different screens. Now the second thing that it provides is State Manager, which is for managing a state of the different part of the application. GetX provides simple and effective state management solution with almost no boilerplate code. The third main thing that it provides is Dependency Manager, which helps managing dependency injections. It provides easy way to inject dependencies to dependent class. At last, it provides some extra utilities which can be helpful at times. Now let's see each of these features individually so that we have some idea what they actually do. So first thing first, RouteManager. The main benefit of RouteManager is that it itself provides its own APIs for navigating different screens, which actually avoids boilerplate code. Because as you know, while playing with navigations and routes, you have to write long boilerplate code. However, if you use GetX, you don't need to write long boilerplate code. Now let's see an example. Suppose if we want to go to second route, or if we want to navigate to second route, normally what we do, we write this whole code just to navigate from one screen to second route. Now, suppose if we are using GetX, now we don't need to write this whole thing. We just need to write get.to and we need to define the route on which we want to go. So how amazing is that? And you can imagine how much time we can save and how much productivity it can increase in long run. Now let's discuss State Manager. GetX provides powerful and smart reactive state management solution. Although it's reactive, means it works on streams. However, GetX creates an abstraction layer and hide all the behind the stuff. So we don't need to work with streams. And as it is a smart state manager, it automatically disposes the states when it is no longer required or referenced. In some other state manager, you need code generation, like when you work with MobX, you need code generation. However, with GetX, you don't need to generate any code. And the fourth cool thing about this state manager that it has simple and short code. Now just to give you a rough idea that how simple and cool it is, you can see this example. Although it's not a complete example, however, it will give you a little idea how this works. You can see we have observable variable, and for making it observable, we don't have to do anything fancy. We just need to write .obs and that's it. And we have increment function, which is actually changing the value of counter variable, which is an observable variable. And to show this changeable text, we just need to wrap this text widget inside the obx widget, which is actually short of observable widget. So this is it. You just need to write this code to make the simple counter application, the default application that we have when we create the application. And you know, in that application, we have a lot of lines of code, and here we just have 6 or 7 lines. So this is how the state manager works. Now the last core thing is Dependency Manager, which provides an easy and simple way to inject dependencies to dependent class without the need of context. You may have used provider as dependency injection, which requires context with injector. However, GetX doesn't need context and has simple code. Here you can see the comparison between provider as Dependency Manager, and GetX as Dependency Manager. So you can see while using provider, you have to pass the context while injecting the dependency. However, with GetX, you don't need to write any context and it has more simpler code. So that's another cool thing about GetX package. Last but not least, GetX provides some extra utilities that can be really handy at times. Like you can open a snack bar using more simpler code without need of context. Similarly, you can open the default dialog without the use of context in it. And you can pass data between different screens using this. And you can play with translation. You can change the theme dynamically. You can use the GetX validators to validate different strings. So these are all the things that makes GetX a complete and powerful framework. Now, as we have discussed GetX, we can implement it now. In order to use GetX package in our Flutter project, we need to install it first. So for installing it, you can go on Google and you can type GetX Flutter and you can open the first link. And in the first link, you can find the installing tab. So you can go on installing tab and you can just copy this thing and you have to paste this thing in pubspec.yaml file. So you can paste it after Cupertino icons. And you have to click on this pubget. This would install this dependency and then we can use GetX package in this application. Now before implementing GetX, let me show you some of the code and structure that I did before to save the time. First of all, inside the lib, we have a directory named page in which we would have all the pages of this application. So right now we just have two pages. The first one is the home page, which will be the default page of this application. And the other page is we have detail page, which we will be used as a second page. Now inside this home directory, which is actually the page of the application, we have further two subdirectories. The first one is controller and the second one is view. The view obviously would hold the view for this screen. However, the controller, which we'll be using in future, right now we don't have anything. The controller will be used for state against this screen. Similarly, we have detail page and inside it we have view that is holding actually the detail screen, the widget of the detail screen. And then we have the controller that we'll be using in future. So let's see what we have in the home screen. The home screen is pretty simple. It just have a scaffold widget and inside it we have an app bar and we have column widget for the body that is actually wrapped inside the container with infinite width so that it takes complete width of the screen. And inside the column we just have one text widget that you can see on the screen right now. This is home screen. Now let's see what we have in detail screen. It's actually more simple screen. We just have a scaffold and inside it we have an app bar that is showing detail screen. And then we have icon button as a leading widget, which we'll be using to go back to the first screen. Now at first we'll implement RouteManager from GetX package as it is first simple and effective thing in GetX. So basically we will use GetX provided API for navigation and we will navigate from home screen to the detail screen. So for this, what I'm doing, I'm first creating a button on the home screen so that on pressing it, we can navigate from this screen to the detail one. So let me first minimize this. And now let's create a button. So I'm creating a flat button. And in the child, we can just give text, go to detail. And for making it little bold, what we can do, we can give some color as well. And let's give text color white. So you can see now we have the button as well on the screen. Now let's write the code for navigating from this screen to detail screen. Now let's suppose if we are not using GetX, what we have to do for navigating from this screen to detail, we have to write this code, navigator dot push, and then we have to specify the context, and then we have to specify material page route, and then we have to specify the builder, and there are a lot of things to just go from one screen to another. So what we can do using GetX, we can use get.to, and inside it you can specify the widget or the screen you want to go on. So I want to go on detail screen, which is, I think, detail screen. Okay. So just you have to write this code. So you can see how amazing is that and how much time you can save because you are actually avoiding the boilerplate code. But before running this or testing this, there's one more thing that we have to do. We have to change this material app to get material app. That is actually the modified version of material app provided by GetX. So this is required when you are when you are using navigation APIs from GetX. So we are actually using this navigation API. So we have to change this material to get material app before running the application. So now let's run the application. Okay, so now let's test it. So we should go to detail screen when we click on this go to detail. So if I click on this, you can see we are navigated to this detail screen. Now, for coming back to the previous screen, what we can do inside the on press of this icon button that we have defined in the app bar, what we can do, we can just use get dot back. There's nothing fancy, no boilerplate code. We just have to write get dot back. So let's restart the application. And let's click on go to detail. So this would take us to detail screen. And if I tap on this back button, this will take us back to the home screen. So you can see we don't have to write boilerplate code. That's the beauty of this navigation APIs from GetX. Also, if you want a user to navigate to some screen and you don't want user to come back, this actually happens when we are working with the splash screens. So you don't actually let user come back to the splash screen. So what you can do, you can, instead of using get.to, you can use get.off. So this would take the user to the detail screen, but when user would want to come back, this won't allow user to come back. So let's click on this. If I tap on it, you can see the user cannot come back. It's actually closing the application rather than coming back to the home screen. It's actually restarted the application. Now using GetX, you can also have the name routes as well. Rather than directly navigating to detail screen, you can use the name against this screen. So what you have to do before using the name routes, you have to specify the names of routes. So for that you can use get pages, and it is actually the list of get page. So you have to specify all the pages of the application inside this. So you can use get page, and inside it you have to specify the name of the route. So as this would be the home screen, so I'm giving here /home, and against this name you have to specify the screen widget, that is a home screen. Okay, so this is actually, we have to do something like that. Okay, and for the other screen, that is detail screen, you can just change the name and the screen widget. And now rather than defining home, what we can do, we can give initial route and we can give here home. So this will open the home screen as initial route, as initial screen. And for navigating, we can now use get.to name. And rather than specifying here the widget, we can specify the name of the screen that we have associated here. So for going to detail screen, we have to write this. And now if I run the application, this should take us to the detail screen. And you can see we are now on the detail screen, and we can also come back since we have used here to name instead of off name. So that's actually RouteManager from GetX package. That one of the great things from this package. And you can see you can save a lot of time by avoiding the boilerplate code using these APIs for navigating from one route to another. Now we'll see the Dependency Manager. As I said earlier, GetX provides easy and simple way to inject dependencies that helps you getting the same instance of the injecting class throughout the application. So let's see how we can inject dependency in our home screen. So for this, what I'm doing, I'm creating a dummy service class that we will inject in the home screen and down the three screens so that it will be available in home screen and all the screen that will come after home screen. So I'm creating a package with the name services. And inside it, we can create a dummy service. And we can name it API underscore service. Anything you want. So this will be the service. It's actually a dummy service that we will inject in our home screen, and we'll try to access it in the home screen as well as the detail screen and the other screen that we'll navigate to further. So what we can do, just create a class, name it API service or anything you want. It will be just an ordinary class, and inside it, just create a dummy method like fetch image or fetch text from API. And inside it, just return some text. So we are actually trying to mimic how we get the text from API. Okay, so we have to change the return type to string because we are returning a string. And inside it, just create another variable with the name value and just give it some random value, anything you want, because we'll test it as well. Now say if I want to access this fetch text from API or this value in home screen and in all the other screen that is down the tree of home. So how we can use it? So first of all, we have to inject this API service in our home screen so that it will be available down the tree. So for injecting, what we can do, we have a code. First of all, write final service, or you can say API service. And for injecting, what we have to do, we have to use get, and we have .put. And here you have to specify the name of the dependency. So we have API service that we want to inject. So this actually inject the dependency, and it also returns the reference of the service. So you can store it and you can use in this screen. So if I want to access the method that was inside the API service, this one, and I want to print it on console, what we have to do, we already got the reference, we just have to write here print, and we have to access API service, and inside it we have fetch text from API. So this will print the text that we have returned from here, and will print it on console. So let's run the application. So let me open the console. Okay. So if I tap on it, go to detail, because we have called this function on tap of this black button. So this should print the text that we have returned. So you can see it prints the text is loaded from backend. So how amazing is that, that we have injected the dependency and we are calling it here. But this is not the actual amazing thing. The amazing thing comes when you try to access this API service in the other screen that is down the home screen. So what we can do, if I want to access the same fetch text from API in the detail screen, so for that, what we can do, for now, I'm just commenting this thing. And for accessing the API service reference, because we have already injected in the home screen, you can see here. Now for accessing what you want to do, we have to write final API service, any name you want to reference it. And for accessing, you have to write get.find, and here you have to specify the type of the service you are referring to. And this is how you can access the API service or the service that you have already injected before. So similarly, like we did earlier, we can call the function, and I want to print it on console, so just wrap it inside print. So this should give the same result. Let's open the application again. So let's open the terminal and let's go to detail screen. I think we have commented the code for navigation. So let's comment this thing now and open this thing. Let's restart the application. And let's go on detail screen. And if I tap on it, because on tapping on this back button, this is calling the fetch text from API, and this is printing the text that is returning by this. So this should print the same thing that we were getting before. You can see it's giving the same output, and you can easily access anything you have inside the dependency. So in the home screen, we have injected the dependency, and in the detail screen, which is down the tree of home, we are accessing this API service. And this is not the new this is not the new instance of the API service. It's exactly the same instance. So when we do get.put, it creates the API service within the get package. It does not create the API service object inside the home screen, but it creates it inside the get package. So when you try to access it by using .find, so it actually returns the same instance that you have created earlier, not the new instance. Now, as we have discussed the RouteManager and Dependency Manager, we'll now see the State Manager, and we'll see how we can use it to manage the state of the application. GetX provides simple and smart reactive state manager, in which you can have a state with many observable variables, the variables that you can observe on UI and change the UI accordingly whenever the observable variable gets changed. GetX gives you GetX controllers that you can use to encapsulate state data against your screen. So first of all, we'll create a controller for this home screen. So you remember we created this folder, this package controller for each of the page. So now we are creating the controller. So inside it, just create a new file and just give it a name. So we are naming it home controller. And it will be an ordinary class first, home controller. And then we need to extend it with GetX controller. And inside it will place all the state data or all the state related functions that we'll be using in the home screen. So as this is the introduction video or just the basics of GetX, we are not doing something really fancy. So I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible so that you can better understand. So we are actually making the normal ordinary counter example. So for this, we have to create an observable integer variable, and that value can be changed whenever user would click on increment. So I'm creating a variable and just giving it a name count and initializing it with 0. And to make it observable, you don't have to do anything fancy. You don't have to generate any code. Like if you have worked with MOBEX, to make a variable observable, you have to generate some code. So while using GetX, you don't have to do anything fancy. You just have to use .obs after the variable value, And this is how you can make the variable observable. And now let's create the increment method so that we can increase the value of count inside it. So just do count plus plus. And we are not going to create the decrement thing because we can understand uh, only by having this increment. Now let's open the home view and let's inject this state in our home screen. So we have to do the same code, just we need to change something here. You can name it state or you can name it home state. And here you have to write home controller. You can say it home controller as well, this thing, anything you want, or maybe we can do it home controller. So this is a state, but GetX says it controller, so we can say anything. Now, what I want to do, first of all, let's restart the application so that we can see the latest result. Now, what I want to do, I want to show here, this is home screen, I want to show here the counter value. So what we can do, we can simply write home controller and inside it we have count. And what I want to do whenever the user would click on this go to detail, so I want to increment this count variable. So you can increment it by accessing controller, inside it we have increment. But before running the application, because as you know, this count is observable variable and it can be changed anytime when the user would hit on this flag button. So we have to observe this variable and we have to change the UI accordingly. Like we do set state, but in reactive programming, we have to observe the change and we have to change the UI accordingly. So observing the observable variable, we don't have to do anything fancy. We just have to wrap the widget inside the OBX widget, which is the short of observable. So this is what we have to do. So we have OBX, and in the widget callback, we just have to return the widget that is actually utilizing the observable variable. So now let's run the application to test whether it is working or not. So you can see right now it's showing 0 as the initial count value. And if I click on this go to detail, this is increasing the count value, and it is also changing the UI accordingly because we have used here OBX widget that is actually short of observer. So it's actually observing the observable value and it is changing the UI accordingly. As you can see, we have actually injected this home controller in home screen. So we can also access the same controller, the same instance of this controller in the detail screen and down the tree of this home screen. So if I try to access this home controller in the detail screen with the same syntax, the home controller inside it, and if I try to print the current count value, so let's open the console and let's run the application. So right now it has 0. So if I increase some, okay, so for navigation we have to make another button. So let's go on home screen and let's create another button. So I just duplicated this one. Just change the name of this to increment. And this one go to detail. And rather than calling anything, we just calling the API for navigating to detail screen. Or we can change the color of it as well. Okay, so if I go to detail screen, and if I tap on back button, because we have some code inside this on press of this back button, so this should print the current value of the count. I think that was 8. So you can see it's printing 8. So you can access the home controller in the detail screen and down the tree screens as well. There's one more thing that we are going to discuss, and that is actually the part of GetX State Manager. So it is actually binding. Binding makes GetX more beautiful and organized. It actually binds dependencies and states together with root. So in this way, we can know which screen is utilizing which state, and it will be more readable and organized. Now, before implementing the binding, let me create the controller for detail view as well, so that we can understand the binding better. So we don't need actually this controller, but we are just creating so that we can understand. So just name it detail underscore controller and make a class detail controller extends with GetX controller, and you can leave it empty because we don't really need the state data in it. Now, as I said, binding binds the state and dependencies together with a root. So let's first create binding for home screen so that we can bind its state and dependency together. So what I'm doing, I'm going inside home and I'm creating another package for binding. And inside the binding, I'm creating home binding. And for creating binding class, you just have to give it a name and you have to extend it with bindings. And once you do it, you get some error because you have to override a method which is dependencies. And inside it, you have to inject all the states and all the dependencies that home view is using, that home page is using. So in home page we have this API service dependency which we are injecting, and this home controller. So what we can do, we can cut this and we can paste it here, because as I said, binding binds the state. So this is actually the state for the home screen, and this is actually the dependency that we are using in home screen. So it binds these two together so that it will be more readable, and we don't have to find out which state is actually using home screen and which service is using which screen. So now we can import it and just import API service. And since we just need to inject these dependency, we don't need to get the reference of it, so we can get rid of this. And this is how you can create the home binding. And because now we are getting the error, we have to get the reference of this home controller. So for getting it, we can do the same thing like we are doing it here. We have to find it, and now you don't have any error. But you can see right now we just have a binding that we just name it home binding, but we haven't practically associated it with the home root. So for associating this binding to the home root or to some specific root, we have to go in main and we have to go in get page where we actually specify the name to a root. And inside it, we have binding. And in binding, you can specify the binding you want. So we are using home binding for this home screen. So this is what you have to do to associate this home binding to this home screen. Now these where we have the home binding. Okay. So these are the dependencies and the state that we have injected actually in the home screen. So it is the similar code that we done before, but making binding, we can see now it is more organized and more readable. And similarly, we can create the binding for the detail screen as well. So just we are not using any, we are not injecting any dependency in detail, but let's create a binding so that we can understand. And let's name it detail underscore binding. And extend to get, sorry, it's just binding. bindings. We need to override, and we have just created the detail controller, so we can, just to understand, we can bind, we can inject it, even though we'll not be utilizing this. So now we can associate this detail binding to the detail root. So just go on main, where we have actually specified name to our root, and here we have to specify this binding. So let's give it detail binding. So now let's restart the application. So we created the bindings, and we have removed the injecting code from the home screen. So rather we have replaced it to find, because we have already injected in binding class, and we are just referencing it to use. So in detail we are also doing same. We are not injecting anything, we are just finding. So let's restart the application. It should behave same even though we have changed everything. So if I increment, you can see it's incrementing, and if I go to detail, it's going on detail. And you can see on press of this back button. I know it's a little weird that I'm printing on this back button, but just to show you. So if I tap on it, you can see it's showing the current count value from the home controller. So you can see how easy and amazing is everything about the GetX. So we have used Dependency Manager. We have seen that we don't need to have the context in order to get the reference of the dependency. However, when we use provider, we need to have the context, and also with the inherited widget. However, in GetX, everything is simple for navigation. They are providing very simple and no boilerplate code APIs for navigation from one screen to another. Also for dependency, they are very great, and for the state manager, they are giving reactive state manager with lesser amount of code and with no code generation and boilerplate. So this is everything great about GetX package. Now at last, we have some extra utilities that comes with GetX package. So I'm not going to show everything, but just to show you some things so that you can see what we can do with GetX. So if you want to open the dialog, so what you can do, I'm just commenting this navigation code, and rather I'm using get.default dialog. And inside it, you can specify the title. And if I run the application, if you have already worked with the dialogues, you know that you have to write almost 6 to 7 lines just to show a dialogue on the screen. But you can see it is just a single line. And if I click on this, go to detail, you can see, even though it's saying dialogue made in 3 lines of code, but it's just a single line. And you can see the dialogue is working. So how amazing is that? And also, we have a code for snack bar. You can have some title, and you can show some message. This is GetX snack bar. Just remove this or comment this thing. So if I click on this, go to detail, it is now showing the snack bar. It's coming from the top. You can change the position, and it will come to the position from wherever you want. So I want it to come from bottom, so you can give it bottom. And if I click on go to detail, you can see it's coming from the bottom. So I think this is it from this video. In this video, we have discussed GetX. I first told you everything about GetX. It was totally theory, and then we have implemented it. I know we haven't gone in so much complications. I kept it as simple as possible so that you can have basic understanding of what GetX is and what you can do with GetX. Now you can extend it by your own, and you can make something really awesome and amazing. And you can show me, in comments as well. So thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please give a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed my channel, then please subscribe my channel and share the videos with those who want to learn Flutter with easy approach. So thank you for watching.